Good afternoon, this is your 28storms.com tropical weather update for this Friday, October 14th. A look at today's visible imagery shows that the tropical disturbance that was initially just to the northeast of the Bahamas is now passing just to the north of Bermuda, but we still can't rule out a couple isolated showers impacting the island, certainly nothing too eventful. The rest of the Atlantic is fairly quiet until we get into the western Caribbean, where we still have that broad monsoon low that is still primarily located over land, and that is the main reason why we're not seeing much in the way of any development. Nevertheless, we still have quite a lot of convection extending all the way from the northwest Caribbean into the far northeast Pacific, and this area will still have to be monitored over the next week or so. The good news is that many of the models are keeping the broad low more so over Central America, with the upper level ridge also remaining generally over Honduras and Belize. The upper level ridge is a little bit more toward the northeast compared to just 24 hours ago. Therefore, the wind shear values are decreasing to some extent here over the Gulf of Honduras. So if there's going to be any development within the next 48 hours, it would more than likely be in that area. However, if we look at the 850 millibar vorticity analysis, this is also just more evidence that the main area of low pressure is still primarily centered over land. Over into the eastern Pacific, we are still dealing with Tropical Storm Irwin. This is simply a storm that does not want to die. It's located just to the southwest of Manzanillo, Mexico. This is a quick look at it on the latest enhanced infrared. And on the latest water vapor, this shows the story better than anything. We have the mid-to upper level ridging continuing to build over much of Mexico. That is the reason why Irwin is now taking a turn more toward the south, and eventually is going to head more toward the west and eventually dissipate as the upper level winds from this mid to upper level disturbance begins to increase the wind shear over our tropical system. So we're looking fairly quiet out there, at least at the moment in the eastern Pacific. It looks as though the monsoon low surrounding Central America could remain more active than it usually is all the way throughout the end of October. This is the latest look at the upward motion across the deep tropics. The green colors represent areas that are experiencing more upward motion than usual, which is simply a good indication that the enhancing phase of the Madden-Julian oscillation is passing through. So we will have more convection over the next couple of weeks, so this will continue to be an area of focus. And then as we go on into November, that is the typical time when the tropics begin to wind down, at least in the Atlantic and Eastern Pacific, and the downward pulse of the Madden-Julian oscillation may help to make that happen a little bit quicker. If we turn to the latest model guidance for the next 7 days, we see that the latest run of the CMC pushes our Yucatan disturbance a little bit more toward the west-northwest. It may have a very brief window of opportunity to develop in the far southeast bay of Campeche before it gets shunted back toward the east due to an approaching cold front, but overall the CMC is not showing any development. The latest 12Z run from the GFS model shows perhaps just a little bit more organization than the CMC is indicating over the southeast bay of Campeche, but still this model is not showing a true tropical depression or tropical storm formation, and the front kicks that area of low pressure back into the northwest Caribbean as we work our way into day 7. The GFS is also trying to develop yet another eastern Pacific storm just to the south of Mexico within 5 to 7 days. However, we are still awaiting some more model agreement before we raise our confidence level of this actually occurring. We do have fairly good model consistency with regards to what is expected in the western Caribbean. This is the latest 12Z ECMWF model forecast. As we go into Saturday and Sunday, we still see that broad 1008 millibar low to the east of Belize, but it's really not developing. And as we go into Monday and Tuesday, the broad low does try to make it into the southeast bay of Campeche and the lower Gulf of Mexico, but we do have an approaching cold front over the southeast United States, and this cold front is going to quickly move off toward the east, and that is going to help draw some of that energy more toward the northeast and disrupt any organization that has possibly occurred by this point. So the threat of heavy rainfall is forecast to persist over portions of Central America, but the odds of tropical development are still probably far less than 50%, and the rest of the tropics are quiet this afternoon. So thanks again for stopping by at 28storms.com. We will have more video updates throughout the weekend.